I want to show you what's going on here on the screen because it could look very complicated and very intimidating, and it really doesn't have to be. The file that I have open is called PLP Logo, and you'll find it in the Chapter 1 folder of the project files. I opened this up in the previous lesson. And the way I know that I have this file open, that I have PLP Logo AI open, is because it shows right up here on the tab. And I can also see that this 102%, that means it's 102% magnification. Now I have this file fit to the screen as big as it can be, and we did that in the last lesson. And on my computer, it's 102%. On your computer, maybe it's a different percentage showing. That's going to vary from one machine to the next. Also, I could see here two other pieces of information. CMYK, that means cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Those are colors suitable for printing. And it also tells me that I'm looking at this in preview mode. And later in this chapter, we'll talk about what preview mode is. The tool that I have selected right now is the hand tool, and that's because double-clicking the hand tool will fit the image in window. I don't want the hand tool right now. If you have that, maybe just click here on the selection tool. So let's talk about what these tools are. I'm not going to go into detail on every single one because you'll just never remember them all, but the most common tool that you'll use is the selection tool, and it's called the selection tool because you use it to select things. So if I want to select the logo, for example, just click it, and now you see it's selected, and you have all these little dots indicating what the various pieces are. And if you click over here, somewhere on the blank background, those go away. Next to it, this white arrow is called the Direct Selection tool, and you use the Direct Selection tool not so much for selecting, although you can, it's really for manipulating the outlines, the strokes of objects. And you have a few other tools here for selecting objects or ranges of objects. You have another group here that's used for text and drawing and painting. You see there's a pen tool, there's a type tool. There's another group below it, and that's used for transforming the stuff. For example, you can rotate the objects on the screen, or you can scale the objects that are here on the screen. You have another section here that's for blending and gradients. Then the section below it is for spraying symbols on the page and for graphs. And then the section below it is, I don't know, kind of miscellaneous. I showed you the hand tool. We'll use the magnifying tool. Now you also have these two colors here, these two boxes. And these are very, very important. You have a solid box, and that determines what is the fill color that is currently in use, and you can apply that. You'll have this kind of hollow box there, and that's for the stroke that's currently in use and currently applied. And on my screen you see there's this red slash, meaning there is no stroke. So if I go and I draw a shape right now, this shape, maybe if I draw a circle or a square, that circle or square will have white fill and no stroke around it. And you have these three little symbols here which tell you how the color is being applied. Is it a solid color? Is it a gradient? Or is there none? And then you have a few buttons that tell you, are you going to draw in front of an object or behind an object or maybe inside an object? And maybe if you're cramped for space on a small screen, or you want to view your artwork without a lot of this overhead of the program, you have this thing here. And if you click that, you can see right now we're in normal mode. You can also go to full screen that has the menu bar. You could also full screen without the menu bar. You might wonder, okay, if I want to get back, how do I click on a little symbol there that isn't there to get back? And you can just hit the escape key. By the way, there is a shortcut for that, and that is F like Foxtrot. Hit F each time it cycles you into another view. And by the way, Adobe Photoshop has pretty much the same feature. Now, speaking of being cramped for space, right now I have these tools in two columns. And you see I've got this little chevron up here. If I click that, it puts them into one column. Now, one column on my screen really isn't very good because there's a lot of these tools that are hidden. So I'm going to click this little rightward pointing chevron so I have it at two columns. So whichever way you want to do, whatever size screen you have, that's your personal preference. Now, on top of the screen, we have typical menu bar, file, edit, and so on. If you're on a Mac, the first menu is going to be the Illustrator menu. and we go all the way across here to Window and Help. So there's really not a big deal with using menus. But we have this other row of tools here, and that's called the Control Panel. It's context sensitive. And what I mean by that is depending on which tool you have active or other things that are going on, this control panel will change a little bit so you can have features that you need right there at that moment. So, for example, right now I have the selection tool active and there's nothing selected. I'll just click on the background to make sure that nothing is selected. And you see over here on the right side I have these two buttons for document setup if I want to change how wide it is, how tall it is, and so on. I could also click this to get into preferences. But now click the artwork here, and you see that goes away and you have a few other tools, like to transform it, for example. I'll just click on the background and that comes back. Click on the type tool, and now you have type-related stuff like character and paragraph and text alignment. And I'll just go back to the regular selection tool and you see that goes away. Now let's take a look on the right side of the screen. Now on the right side of the screen we have panels. Now if you're seeing this for the first time you might think to yourself, okay, I've got tools on the left, now I have tools also on the right. These are not tools, these are actual panels. And they actually pop out when you need them. So for example, the first one here that looks like a little artist's palette, that will apply color. If you click that, you see that pops out and then you can choose various colors on this color ramp or color spectrum. If you'd rather choose color by little chips, you can click the swatches panel and you see that pops out. Also, the panels have individual tabs. So right now when I click that swatches panel, I see here grouped with it, I have different brushes that I can choose, I have different symbols, and we'll take a look at these later on. But that's what's going on here in that particular one. And if you just click somewhere in the background, you notice it doesn't go away because it's not the control bar, but you have this little chevron here, this little two-headed arrow, and you could click that, and that's another way for it to disappear. Or, let's bring it out again, if you choose another panel. Maybe I'll go over here to the Layers panel. When I click that panel, that one goes away, and now Layers comes up. Again, I'll just click that. Now, when you're first starting to use Illustrator, you might say to yourself, well, gee, that's all nice, but it's kind of hard to remember what's what or what all these are. There are little text labels that you can use. Try this. Put your mouse pointer over here on the right side in between, or kind of, I'll say, on the edge of these panels. You see how my mouse pointer is now this two-headed arrow? Click and drag to the left, and you notice that the labels start coming up so you can actually see what they are. So you might want to use Illustrator this way a little bit until you're comfortable with them, and then you can go and drag them back and say, okay, I don't need the labels anymore. I don't really need to take up that space. But there is yet even another way to do that. And you see up here you have another one of these two-headed arrows. When you click that, it expands the panels. So now you see them all expanded rather than just saying, oh, okay, now I want to see one panel, now I want to see another panel. So this is really all personal preference and depends on how much space you want to devote to that on your screen. For now, I don't need them. I'm going to put them back. I'll click this two-headed arrow. And by the way, these are not all of the panels that you have available. There are others that kind of come around and they will float on the screen. These are also very customizable. If you go up to the Window menu, these are all of the panels that are available. And you may or may not need to scroll up or down. I'm running this at kind of a lower resolution just for the purpose of the recording. Now, above those panels, you have this kind of little unassuming button there. And that button controls what does or does not show up on the rest of the control panel. Let's click it, and you see on mine, everything is visible. And that means that anything that you need on this control panel will show up. But maybe there's something that is missing that you want to put up, or vice versa. For example, over here you have these two little boxes. This box is for fill color, and this box is for stroke color. Now maybe you don't need them up there. You'd rather choose your fill and stroke using the little swatches panel over there, and you'd rather dedicate the space to something else, or maybe you expect it to see there and it's not. Well, click this little button there, and you see down over here it says fill and stroke. Now, I have a check mark there because it's up there, but if you click that, notice that goes away, And if you click this little button, you can see there is no check mark. And say, oh, I really do want the fill and stroke to be up there. If you click that, then those little boxes are available. And if I click this again, you can see fill and stroke is there with that checkbox. Also, on your screen, you may see some of these items kind of spread out here on this control panel, whereas on mine you don't, or maybe vice versa. Illustrator is always very much aware of how much space you have on your screen for all of its tools and all of its overhead. Also, if you decide that maybe you want this control bar down on the bottom of the screen, you can choose over here, dock to bottom. I'm going to leave it up here at the top. And now let's go and use one of these. For example, over here we have, I talked about this just before, the fill color and the stroke color. Right now, if I want the stroke color, if I want to change the color of the stroke rather than the color of the fill, I click it and you see that comes up to the foreground, and you may see this panel pops up. If I decide, oh, well, really I want to change the color and not the stroke, I click on the fill color there, and that comes up instead of the stroke. Well, they're both white or black. It's kind of boring. Let's give them some real color. So if you need to, click the box for fill, and then maybe I'm going to go over here to the swatches panel and just click color. I'll just click maybe dark blue. So now I have dark blue fill, but the stroke is empty. Not white, just nothing there. So click that, and you see that comes up. And go back to the swatches, and maybe I decide that I want a yellow stroke. So I'll click that, and you see that becomes yellow. And here's a really neat feature. Let's say you decide, I got this backwards. I really want to have a blue stroke and a yellow fill. You see you have this little curved arrow there? Click that curved arrow, and it swaps. So fill color becomes a stroke color and vice versa. And because we have the fill and stroke colors determined over there, now up here on the control panel, we have those. So that's just another way of applying colors. You can click this, and maybe I decide, you know what, maybe I want my fill color, instead of being yellow, I want it to be green, and my stroke color, instead of it being blue, I want it to be orange or something, and you can do that. So the choices you make up here are also reflected over there. And one last thing about the Illustrator interface I want to call your attention to, and that is the rulers. So right now I have a ruler going across here. I have a horizontal ruler, I have a vertical ruler. If you don't have the rulers showing at all, a couple of things you could do is either Control R on Windows or Command R on the Mac will toggle them on and off. If you don't want to remember R for rulers, you could always go up here to the View menu. And in the View menu, go down here to Rulers, and from the pop-up you can choose to hide rulers or show rulers. And nothing says that you have to have the rulers in inches. Click your right mouse button, or if you have a one-button mouse on the Mac, you can control-click, and now you can choose, oh, maybe instead of inches I want to use points, or maybe I want to use centimeters, so you can go and do that. You can do that for either the horizontal or for the vertical rulers.